What else you want to know?
Well, I have something.
Yeah.
So I'm getting ready to list a lot with a single family residence on it, and my seller bought the lot next door to it. Um, but there's no easement to it. He didn't want to put an easement in, so we're selling them together. Yesterday, I was looking at, I was drawing up the contracts, and I happened to notice that the vacant lot is zoned commercial. And then she gave me a horror story about people that bought something that was commercial and built a home there and we're going to run their business out of it. And then it turns out that in the fine print of the commercial rules, they were only on this particular property able to run a business a few hours a week. And they ended up foreclosing on the property after investing another $1 million into it because and that's a good lesson to learn that I didn't realize that even though it's commercial, you really need to check to see exactly what kind of business could be run out of it and exactly how many hours are allowed. So I'm just kind of wondering, should I approach this differently or selling it as one thing? And just want your opinion.
This is a big question. I'm going to
Yeah.
try to give you a small enough answer. Okay. And then, Jen, I'm going to call on you to jump in if I miss anything because I know you've kind of done this too. All right. So the first thing I'm going to say is this for everybody's benefit, and write this down. Commercial real estate is use driven. What can you do on the property? Okay. Now, one of the things you brought up, Kelly, was time limitations. Okay. So restrictions on use are mitigations, and mitigations most often have to do with impact on surrounding properties. Okay. Traffic, noise, lights, stuff like that. All of these things are controlled under the domain of generally two departments, the planning department and public works. Okay. So I tell every single realtor I've ever met who's going to touch land, don't even touch your listing agreement until you get an appointment with the planner of jurisdiction, or also known as the director of community development. Because until you know what you can do on that property, you are walking into a minefield that can just blow your license off the wall. And I'm not exaggerating. I'm being quite straight with you guys. I started doing this in 1988, and I learned some lessons the hard way, but that was one of the biggest lessons I learned. Stop number one on the train, so to speak, is you go get a meeting with the planner. You bring in the parcel number, you sit down, you have a preliminary meeting. Now, when we did our development, we had a formal pre-development conference with the city of Lakewood, who had jurisdiction over this parcel. Now, that's in Pierce County, and that's an important point. Who has jurisdiction, city or county, or services offered by both? You need to know that as well. So that meeting, I think it was like $300 or something. It was on Zoom. We had to fill out an application, and no, we didn't have to give them architectural plans or anything, but just kind of drew some stuff and said, hey, let's talk about this. So the planner was there, the city engineer was there, public works was there, fire was there, water was there. It wasn't the health department because we weren't doing any food stuff. Okay. That's a very, very important meeting. And my argument is I would have that meeting before you take it to market, because if you don't, any buyer who's not a fool is going to require feasibility to do the exact same thing.
But if I don't mention that aspect of it being commercial, this the side lot.
I'm going to have you defer to your broker. I'm not going to say anything about that. Well, actually I am. So my business policy is be a damn professional and know what the hell you're doing. Okay. And too many people just don't fill in the blanks, and lawyers tell them not to because you're going to be liable. And I'm not going to get a whole liability thing. My opinion is we're getting paid this much money. We need to know what the hell we're doing. And so you guys come and talk to me or go to the classes. I'm telling you, this is what you have to do. You're talking about being a developer right now. And this is always a very interesting bridge for people who sell houses for a living, which is fine. But now you're talking about doing something you don't do every day,
Right.
which is land.
We're not trying to be a developer. We just
No, I know, but you're trying to represent a seller, and someone's going to want to do something with this property. That's called development. So when you go to your broker, well, they may not, you're right. But when you go to your broker and say, hey, isn't this worth more because it's commercial? That's a question that happens every day in America. And I'm saying I've done it. And so you have this meeting, or at least talk to the planner in Public Works, and you find out, okay, so for example, I haven't seen the parcel map, but you cannot sell a landlocked parcel. So if a part of the valuation is the value of this lot, question number one is, how do you get there? Okay. You have to have an easement. Okay. What does that do to the building envelope? And how are you going to get sewer to it? And how are you going to get water to it? And what about the fire department? Those are all things that are going to come up that net should affect the value of the property. I can tell you in Pierce County, the biggest problem is the damn sewer. The legislature goes, oh, yeah, the preamble of the bill, we got to have 1 million new houses. Great. Tell all the cities and counties that we have a problem with infrastructure. We can't do this. That's the bottleneck.
Isn't that why Cleellum just declared bankruptcy?
I have no idea.
Essentially, the mayor committed to, adding 10,000 doors in this master plan deal, and they can't afford to support it.
Yeah, I'm just saying, in the world of development, wastewater mitigation is a thing. Humans create waste. What are you going to do with it? That's a bottleneck in development.
And to add on to
go ahead, Jen.
So we do. This is my life right here. This is what we do on the backside. And what I will say is that piece of dirt, no matter what it is zoned, residential, commercial, mixed use, doesn't matter, is worth far more as soon as you put all of those overlays and information on it. And also being one who's been on both sides, it is so easy to put in your easement when you own everything versus later down the road. So if I'm a seller on that, I would absolutely do your overlays, find out your information, because then you'll find a better buyer, and that better buyer will pay you more. And also you'll have a chance at selling. Honestly, in this land market at this moment in time, you need good buyers, because there's a lot of tire kickers out there who are going to waste your time or screw up something with the city or the county or whoever your zoning is. So I would say, give the information, put everything in line. And that I'm happy to just tell you what I do, what I don't.
Seller just doesn't want to do the easement, doesn't want, he's not interested in it.
Okay, so then you need to price that in. And let me just add something real quick. Here's what else I would do if I were you, Kelly. I would find a surveyor that works in that area, and I'd get that meeting as well, because eventually someone's going to have a survey. It's going to have to happen. Now, we paid about $7,000 for our surveying to create our lot. Okay. And there's all sorts of geotechnic. There's all this other stuff that goes in we'll get into now. But those are soft costs. And, you look back at this deal we just did. How did we make 50% or 100% of our money? Because we added value to the land. It's just like Jen's saying. When that buyer took title, we'd already done everything. It was all done. And that's what land developers get paid to do. Okay, go ahead.
If your seller goes through all the processing, just because he puts an easement on paper doesn't mean he has to do anything with it, right? Like you're just putting some stuff in writing at the county or the city so that later that's on record. And that's all you have to do. And now, congratulations, Mr. Seller, you spent $7,000 and you made 30.
Okay.
So that's, yeah.
Can I jump in here for a second?
Sure, go ahead.
I've spent the last 4 years dealing with the city and the county, not Kitsap, not that, but a lot of the cities and counties are currently doing their comprehensive plan updates, or they have completed it already. In December 2024 was the deadline for various counties. So check with Kitsap and see what their timeline is. Just a quick search. It looks like they completed it in 2024. So take a look at that. as well as the city. See who is the jurisdiction that controls the property there. And then do what Joe was saying, go to the county or the city and say, what are your plans for this zone? Regardless of whether it's residential or commercial. If you look, they have a zoning code for each of these commercial, residential, mixed use, whatever. But you can do a whole variety of things. For example, we have a mixed use zone where I'm at, and you can do mixed use, stacked retail or business on the bottom, residential on the top, or you could just do like a townhome development. Mm-hmm. So, there's lots of opportunities, and finding that out really does affect the value. So if you just take that meeting and say, what can I do with this property? Give me the options, and then present that. And that defines what your value is.
And where did you say to go to start with that? I missed it.
Well, you need to figure out who you would apply for permits. Is it in the city? Oh. Is it in their urban growth area? Or is it in the city proper? Or is it in the county? And that could be split if half of it's residential and half of it's commercial. That could be the jurisdictional line. So dig into that.
Well, and the other thing about that is part and parcel of this community of this discussion, I would argue a very strong part of it is not just what does the zoning allow you to do, but what does the infrastructure allow you to do? Okay, so like in our situation, the property was in the city, but the sewer was controlled by the county. And the sewer taps are what limited our ability to create another lot. We could have made another lot for another probably $120,000, but didn't have sewer capacity. Now, the other thing, and I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on this, but it kind of matters. If you've never sat down with these cities and counties before, you get to a part of the permit process that's what I call the hostage taking. And this is the dedications. Okay. They want you to give them right of way, give them this, give them that. And there's a price to all of this. Okay. And that's a part of the whole development package. And that, if nothing else, that in and of itself really shores up what Jen said. The more of these things that you nail down, button down, have in writing, have recorded, whatever you're going to do, the more valuable that property is.
And thank you, Joe, because you reminded me. I learned the hard way on the first pre-app meeting that I ever sat down with in Ellen's Farm. And at that point, I was like, you know what? I got to bring professionals to this meeting with me, because that was 20 years ago. And I learned a lot just sitting and listening. And I would have given everything away if I didn't have a good contractor at that moment who was like, oh, wait, but what about? Oh, but what about? Oh, but what about? And that's what he did the whole time. And it turned into you cannot develop this into oh, yeah, oh, that's great. Oh, we can do this. It's that barter system that Joe just kind of, it's hostage taking, I guess, but I consider it more barter. But yeah, to have a pro with you when you go to that meeting the first time, or a lot of it's on Zoom now. So, I mean, that's easy. You don't have to drive everywhere.
Joe has been talking about sitting down with your city planner forever, right? And I started making calls to the county at one point to see about doing that. No, they have no idea. They don't know what that is. They don't have a person that's named that as a job. I got nowhere. Maybe I just talked to somebody.
In Kitsap County, really?
Yeah. That's what I was told.
What about the director of community development? Sometimes it's called that.
I don't know, but whoever I spoke to, I got nowhere. So.
Okay, well, I would call the building department, because they have to have one of those, and ask those people who it is. They've got somebody.
Quick note, I just Googled Kitsap County land use. They have a land use and development consultant list online. So I would suggest you go there.
Now, what is happening in some of these smaller municipalities, just for everybody's benefit, is that they are contracting a lot of the permit and plan review out because they don't have staff. And that's adding to time. That's their thing too. That's the whole backdrop of this is, You can say, oh, it's commercial. This is awesome. Look how great it is. But how long is it going to take to get the permit? See, that's a whole nother, these carrying costs can eat you. Look what happened to us. It ate our profit by 50%.
Right.
Hey, Joe, when you have these meetings, do you walk away with some sort of like declaration or something of what can and can't be done that you can stand on? Or, I mean, like, because somebody else could go have that meeting to, several people's points here and come out with a totally different outcome. So, like, what do you walk away with that helps you market this property other than just your word that you had this meeting and they sort of loosely committed to you can do these things with it?
Good question. You walk out with more information than you had when you walked in. Usually you walk out with better information. And I would always be super duper cautious about saying, this is going to happen, because I have friends who are developers who have gotten letters in writing from cities and counties. Then they go to plan submission like, oh no, we're not going to do that. Yeah, but I already talked to so-and-so. Here it is on your letterhead in writing. No, we're not going to do that. I mean, I'm telling you.
So how do you identify yourself as an agent if you're representing a property?
Oh, you just do the usual stuff you do, I mean, in the statute, you don't have the reasonably should have known standard anymore. You just have to document referring out to expert advice. So if I was going to do this and broker it, I would, if it was me, I'd get a surveyor. I'd have a surveyor at the meeting and ask the surveyor, look, I'll pay you a couple $100, whatever it is. And I just want you to transcribe your notes on your letterhead. And I'd hand that to the buyer and say, here, talk to this surveyor. And usually the surveyor is glad to do it. They don't care about liability. They're not licensed. Well, they are licensees, but not like we are. And they'd like to get the business. So that's the way I'd do it.